The question is this enough to conclude that music in general is haram? So when you sincerely ask me whether music in general in Islam is haram, and then you quote this particular verse in Surah Al-Luqman, with the understanding I have with why the verse was revealed and what Abdullah ibn Mas'ud or the comment he made in regards to this verse, I would say, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على نبينا محمد وعلى آله حق قدره ومقداره العظيم ورضي الله عن أصحاب رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Welcome to my channel. This is your brother Ma'moon. Today, inshallah, we are going to be having a very interesting topic, which is music in regards to Islamic jurisprudence, inshallah. Now, inshallah, I'm going to make this as educative and as informative as possible. And by that, I mean, most of the things I'm going to be saying is going to be based on the Quran and then the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So inshallah, we are going to be looking at a couple of verses in the Quran. We are going to look at the tafsir. We are going to look at the circumstance surrounding the revelation of these verses, and that is to look at the context in which these verses were revealed to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And with that, I believe we'll be able to make a reasonable conclusion whether or not music in Islam is haram. Now, while many da'is and shuyukhs have given a profound explanation and fatwa in regards to music in Islam, my main goal in this video is to kind of help viewers broaden their horizon with a much deeper and a more comprehensive understanding of the subject, inshallah. Now, when we turn to Surah Al-Luqman, when we look at verse number 6, Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala made a statement. He said, وَمِنَ النَّاسِ مَنْ يَشْتَرِي لَحْوَ الْحَدِيثِ, right? He said, وَمِنَ النَّاسِ مَنْ يَشْتَرِي لَحْوَ الْحَدِيثَ لِيُضِلَّ عَنْ سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ. So when Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala said, وَمِنَ النَّاسِ, meaning وَمِنَ النَّاسِ, from amongst the people, مَنْ يَشْتَرِي لَحْوَ الْحَدِيثِ, right? مَنْ يَشْتَري, there's that one who buys or who pays for, right? لَحْوَ الْحَدِيثِ. Now, what is lahu? In the Arabic language, when you say lahu, it simply means entertainment, right? Anything in a form of entertainment or amusement can be considered as a lahu, right? Anything basically that distracts a person from being serious in life, right? That is anything to entertain somebody. That is lahu. Now, when you say hadith, hadith is any form of utterances or words, in the form of words or anything that comes out of a person's mouth. That is hadith, right? Now, when you put these words together, lahu al-hadith, meaning any form of utterances or words that comes out of a person's mouth with the intention or with the goal of entertaining the listener, right? So lahu al-hadith means any sort of utterances for the purpose of entertainment. But when we really look at the seer of this word, man yashtari lahu al-hadith, it says, man yashtari ma yulahi an ta'atillahi wa yasuddu an sabilihi, right? Meaning that from amongst the people, there are people who buy or who pay for things that deviate a person from the obedience of Allah, right? That causes a person to deviate from the obedience of Allah, right? وَيَصُدُّ عَنْ سَبِيلِهِ, and prevents the person from being steadfast upon the path of Allah. So basically, Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala is informing us that there are people at the time of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam who are committed to doing that. Now, to really have a deeper and a more comprehensive understanding of a verse of the Quran is very, very crucial, right? It's very important that we understand the circumstance surrounding the revelation of that verse. Why did Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala reveal this verse? For what purpose, right? That's what we call asbabun nuzul. Now, we are going to come to that, but before that, I would like you and I to really look at some of the comments from the companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what they had to say in regards to this particular verse. Now, who is Abdullah ibn Mas'ud? The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam made a statement. He said, خُذِ الْقُرْآنِ مِنَ الْأَرْبَعِ, right? He said, take the Quran from four, meaning take the Quran from four people, right? And amongst the people, The Prophet ﷺ made mention of Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. Why? Because he has a very deep understanding of the Quran, right? He understands the Quran the way it's supposed to be understood, right? He has a much deeper knowledge and understanding of the Quran. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud was asked in regards to this verse, وَمِنَ النَّاسِ مَنْ يَشْتَرِي لَهْوَ الْحَدِيثِ لِيُضِلَّ عَنْ سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ. And what he said was, he swore by Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala. He said, Wallahi alladhi la ilaha illa huwa. He said this 3 times. He swore by Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala. And he said, Wa innama huwa al-ghina. He said, Wa innama huwa al-ghina. He said, verily, it is music. Meaning that the verse that Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala revealed in Surah Al-Luqman, Allah Azza wa Jal was referring to music. That was his statement. He said, Innama huwa al-ghina. Verily, this is music, meaning this is in regards to music. The question is this enough to conclude that music in general is haram? Now, if you're a student of the Quran, you know that there's something we call sababun nuzul or asbabun nuzul, right? When you say sabab simply means reason or the cause of something, right? So when you say sababun nuzul, meaning the reason for a revelation. Now, let's look at why Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala revealed this particular verse. What is the sababun nuzul with respect to this particular verse? وَمِنَ النَّاسِ مَنْ يَشْتَرِي لَهْوَ الْحَدِيثِ لِيُضِلَّ عَنْ سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ. Right? Now, there lived a man called An-Nadr bin al-Harith. Now, this man was one of the biggest enemies of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We've heard of Abu Jahl, we've heard of Abu Lahab, but this man is actually one of the biggest enemies of Islam in general. So with An-Nadr bin al-Harith, his main goal in life is to just deviate people from Islam, right? Whenever he meets a Muslim or encounters any Muslim at all, his main goal is to just draw them to his way of life. So this was the lifestyle of An-Nadr bin al-Harith, just calling people and deviating people from Islam, right? And what did he use for that? He used music. He used female singers to deviate people from Islam, to make people go contrary to their laws of Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala. So the reason why Allah Azza wa Jalla sent down this verse, وَمِنَ النَّاسِ مَنْ يَشْتَرِي لَهْوَ الْحَدِيثِ, was purposely because of what An-Nadr bin al-Harith used to do. Now let's compare that to the comment made by Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, right? When he swore 3 times and said this verse that Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala revealed is talking about music. He said, Wallahi alladhi la ilaha illa huwa. Innama huwa al-ghina. Verily, this is about music, right? So it only makes sense. It only makes sense that Abdullah ibn Mas'ud made that comment because he knows the sabab al-nuzul. He's one of the most knowledgeable when it comes to the Quran. He understands the Quran in depth. That's why the Prophet ﷺ mentioned him amongst the 4, right? So if Abdullah ibn Mas'ud made that comment, he made that comment because of the sabab al-nuzul, why the verse was revealed. It was revealed upon An-Nadr bin al-Harith because the goal or the main goal of An-Nadr bin al-Harith in life is to only deviate people from the path of Allah, and he used music, he used female singers for that. Now from this, you would understand why it is totally impossible to just say that because of what Abdullah ibn Mas'ud said in regards to this particular verse in Surah Al-Luqman, then music in general is haram in Islam. So when you sincerely ask me whether music in general in Islam is haram, and then you quote this particular verse in Surah Al-Luqman with the understanding I have with why the verse was revealed and what Abdullah ibn Mas'ud or the comment he made in regards to this verse, I would say no, that is not enough for a person to make a conclusion or to conclude that music in general is haram because of what Abdullah ibn Mas'ud said in regards to this particular verse. With that being said, we've made a very meaningful deduction from the verse in Surah Al-Luqman and from the comments of one of the greatest, almost knowledgeable people of the Quran, that is Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, and then the sabab al-nuzul, that is the circumstance or the context in which that verse was revealed to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We cannot use that to make that conclusion that music in general is haram in Islam. With that being said, can we also make that conclusion that then music in general is halal, is permissible in Islam? Definitely no. We cannot say that, right? Because we do not have enough proof from the Quran for us to make that conclusion, right? At least not yet. So inshallah, I'm going to be looking at some other verses in Surah Al-Shu'ara. In Surah Al-Shu'ara, Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala made a statement. He said, وَالشُّعَرَاءُ يَتَّبِعُهُمُ الْغَاوُونَ يَتَّبِعُهُمُ الْغَاوُونَ. He said the poets or the singers, right? Poets, the same as singers, because in the past, people who were poets were considered as musicians because they write those poems and then they sing with it, right? So Allah said, وَالشُّعَرَاءُ يَتَّبِعُهُمُ الْغَاوُونَ, right? People who have gone astray are the ones who follow them, right? People who have gone astray, meaning that people who do not follow Islam, the mushrikuns, people who do not have any form of belief in their heart. But when Allah says وَالشُّعَرَاءُ, Allah was referring to these believing poets, the poets who did not follow the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? Who were not believers, they were disbelievers. So when Allah said وَالشُّعَرَاءُ يَتَّبِعُهُمُ الْغَاوُونَ, the poets or the singers, only people who have gone astray who follow them, meaning that the poets or singers of the mushrikuns, the disbelievers, people who did not believe in the prophethood or the message of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala also said, Alam tara, do you not see, annahum, that verily these singers or poets, fi kulli wadin, in every path, yahimun, they wander, meaning they enter everywhere, they take every path, they say whatever they want to say, they do not care, right? Everything that they feel like it is enticing to the ears, they will say it. Because what? They want listeners, they want people to listen to them. They don't care about the deen, right? Because these people were mushrikuns. They did not follow the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They did not care about the akhirah. They did not care about anything good, morality, anything of that sort. They did not have any kind of concern with regards to the deen or with regards to morality, anything of that sort, right? These people said anything they wanted to say, right? That's what Allah said, Alam tara, do you not see? Annahum, that verily these people, these singers, these poets, fi kulli wadin, in every path, yahimun, they wander everywhere. Today they are here, the next day they are there. You see them cursing somebody one day, and then the next day they'll be blessing that person, right? Praising that person, right? They say things that are contrary to what they said before, right? So these people, they are everywhere, right? They say anything they want, they say, right? Because they don't have any kind of morality. They don't care about morality, right? They don't care about what the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam says. They don't care about what the Quran says, right? They don't care about, whether what they are saying is pleasing to Allah Azza wa Jalla or not. So Allah Azza wa Jalla is referring to the poets and the singers of the mushrikuns. So with that, we cannot say that Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala is saying all musicians or all poets, only people who have gone astray who follow them. No, Allah Azza wa Jalla is not referring to all musicians or all poets, but specifically those of the disbelievers, right? Because they do not have any sort of morality in what they're saying. They do not care. They just say what they wish to say. And Allah Azza wa Jalla said, وَأَنَّهُمْ يَقُولُونَ مَا لَا يَفْعَلُونَ. Allahu Akbar. Allah said, وَأَنَّهُمْ, and verily these people, يَقُولُونَ, they say, مَا لَا يَفْعَلُونَ. They say that which they do not do, right? And subhanAllah, look at all these musicians these days. They say stuff that they actually don't do, right? So these are the people Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala is referring to, right? That the nature of a poet and then a musician is that they are all over the place. There's no truth in what they're saying. There's no proof in what they're saying. And majority of the time, they say stuff that they do not do themselves. Now, when you look at the sabab al-nuzul of this particular verse, you realize that Allah Azza wa Jalla sent down this verse in regards to people who were calling the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam a musician, right? They said he was just a musician or a poet, right? So that's why Allah sent down this verse. Now, is that enough to conclude that all musicians or all poets are only followed by people who have gone astray? Definitely no. Because when Allah said وَالشُّعَرَاءُ, Allah was referring to the poets or the musicians of the mushrikuns, of the disbelievers. Now, the Prophet ﷺ had musicians or poets he used to listen to. SubhanAllah. An example of them is Hassan, right? Hassan was a mu'min, he was a believer, but at the same time, he was a musician. He used to sing, and the Prophet ﷺ used to listen to Hassan sing. Because most of the things Hassan says were full of wisdom and hikmah, right? Full of wisdom. There's a lot of hikmah in what Hassan used to say. So the Prophet ﷺ used to listen to Hassan sing. The Prophet ﷺ even said, Inna min ash-sha'ri la hikmatun. He said, verily, from among some of these poetry and these music, la hikmatun, there is wisdom in it. Allahu Akbar. So the Prophet ﷺ made that statement because of these type of musicians like Hassan. Hassan used to sing, and the Prophet ﷺ and then the companions used to listen to him sing. If a music makes you learn a lot in life, it has a lot of wisdom in it, then this type of music is totally and completely halal. That is, it is permissible, right? But if a music is filled with violence, talking about sex, drugs, and all the things that are forbidden in Islam, that type of music is what is considered totally haram. With that being said, music in general cannot be considered haram, and at the same time, it cannot be considered totally halal. It all depends on the type of music, the lyrics of the music, right? How does the music benefit you as a Muslim, right? What kind of wisdom do you get from the music? So if a music benefits you in terms of life lessons, you learn some things, you get some wisdom from the music. As the Prophet ﷺ said, Inna min ash-sha'ri la hikmatun. Verily, from some of the music or poetry, there's a lot of wisdom in them, right? So music should be that way. Good music that is halal, should be the type of music you learn something from. It benefits you in some way. But if a music is filled with, haram stuff, talking about sex, drugs, violence, things that do not benefit you in any way as a Muslim, that makes it totally and completely 100% haram. And the truth of the matter is that is a case of, the music industry these days. It's very hard to find these type of music you can learn something from. I mean, let's be honest with ourselves, right? The music these days are filled with haram stuff, and that is the truth. There's no other way around it, right? The music industry these days is filled with filth. We learn nothing from them, right? They only make us worse human beings, right? They do not improve our lives in any way. Now, the Prophet ﷺ said, لَيَكُونَنَّ مِنْ أُمَّتِي أَقْوَامٌ يَسْتَحِلُّونَ الْحَرِيرَ وَالْخَمْرَ وَالْمَعَازِفَ. Right? The Prophet ﷺ said, there is going to come from among his ummah men who are going to make that which Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala has made haram. They will come and then make it halal. And from amongst the things that the Prophet ﷺ mentioned, he mentioned ma'azif. Right? Ma'azif simply means musical instrument made out of string. That is stringed musical instrument. An example of that is like guitar, violin, and that nature. Right? These type of musical instruments are what we consider or is considered as ma'azif. Now, because of this, that's why some scholars have generally concluded that any form of musical instrument is totally haram in Islam. But the Prophet ﷺ said ma'azif. And when you say ma'azif is just stringed instrument, basically musical instrument that are made and has some kind of chord attached to it, right? Example is like violin, example is guitar. So these are the type of musical instrument we call ma'azif. I seek to differ with the opinions of these scholars saying that any form of musical instrument is haram, because the Prophet ﷺ made a very specific, selection with the word. He said ma'azif, and ma'azif generally means musical instrument made from string or stringed musical instrument. And also the fact that even during the time of the Prophet ﷺ, some musical instruments like drum and other type of musical instruments were used during Eid and stuff. And the Prophet ﷺ never made any negative comment with respect to that. So with that being said, not all musical instruments are considered haram, even though some scholars have that opinion. But, mainly stringed musical instruments are clearly forbidden in Islam. That is, if we look at the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, where he said ma'azif, meaning stringed instruments. So with that, I would stay on the side that not all musical instruments are considered haram. So to conclude, is music in Islam generally haram or halal? It's yes and no. Music in Islam cannot be considered generally to be haram. At the same time, it cannot be considered to be generally halal or permissible. It all depends on the type of music. As Muslims, of course, the music has to benefit us. Right? It has to be a music with wisdom in it, something that will benefit us both in this world and in the hereafter. But if it's the type of music that is filled with violence, talking about drugs and money and all the stuff that only talks about dunya stuff, things that has nothing to do with our faith, or things that are not going to benefit us in any way in this life, then the hereafter, they are rather going to make us the worst people that we already are, right? Those type of music, obviously, without any question, are considered haram. Now, with respect to musical instruments, obviously, not all musical instruments are haram. Why? Because the Prophet ﷺ made mention of ma'azif. Ma'azif are known to be stringed musical instrument, right? But perhaps other type of musical instrument can be considered halal if they are used in the halal way, right? Of course, the music that is sung together with that musical instrument has to be a halal type of music, right? The lyrics has to be something that is beneficial, right? That has some wisdom in it. If not, that musical instrument, even if it is not a stringed musical instrument, also becomes haram, right? So in conclusion, not all musical instrument is halal, or not all musical instrument is haram. It all depends on how we use it. And at the same time, not all music in general is haram or halal. It all depends on the lyrics of the music. Barakallahu li wa lakum. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.